big weekend of racing coming up at Saratoga. It is Travers Day on Saturday, August the 23rd. And all throughout the Saratoga meet, you can test out the DRF AI tool for free. Chat.drf.com. Test it out on Travers Day. Ask it questions. Maybe you're someone who plays particular jockeys or trainers. You're looking for some of their mounts. Maybe you're just looking for horses at a particular price. You're looking for a certain type of horse, how you gamble on races, how you bet on races. This will help you out. Ask DRF AI. On this video, we're going to take a look at 5 consecutive grade ones on Saturday at Saratoga. There's a mandatory payout pick 5 that rolls from races 9 through 13, Barry. So even though we don't get the biggest field for the Travers, there are some really competitive races. I think in particular to start the personal ensign, you have a lot of the top fillies and mares in there led by Torpedo Anna. You've got the Jerkins that's really competitive as well. Those 2 races to kick off the pick 5 feel like you can, pick and choose from a few different ones and then maybe shorten up as we get closer to the Travers.
Yeah. A lot of this time, in August, September is really kind of sets you up for the Breeders' Cup. I think the horses are kind of jockeying for position to see where they fall within the, the ranks of their divisions. And these are good litmus tests for a lot of these races in October. The Jerkins always has an impact. The Ballerina always has an impact on Breeders' Cup races. So it's a real good gauge of what we might see down the line. This might even be the last time we see these horses before that.
Yeah, we're already seeing articles of horses saying they're going to be training up now after winning their most recent prep or maybe deciding not to run some of these races. So you're right. 1-2 chances maybe to get a look at some of these horses, and some might even be pointing towards the Breeders' Cup right now. So big weekends ahead, Travers, and then Pacific Classic coming up following that. So Barry, what's nice, the next couple days, you can try to get into this big Travers Day challenge, which is an $800 entry, but you can try to get in for just $40 the next few days. And this is a big tournament on Saturday that has Breeders' Cup, Betting Challenge, BCBC, and NHC seats up for grabs. So for $40, if you're looking at this, we're recording this Wednesday night, still have chances on Thursday and Friday for that. And then Saturday, it's the $800 challenge. If you just want to enter for that one right now, go over to ExpressBet. They have so many different tournaments going on right now. The Fun in the Sun one is also on Saturday. The pool here is not updated in this graphic, but it's the first 5 races from Del Mar, last 5 from Saratoga. So that will include a couple of the races that we're talking about here. This is a really affordable tournament. It's only $125 to enter, and you bet 10 win wagers, and all that money that you win just stays on your ExpressBet account. So it's like you're playing on a Saturday, and most of the races you're looking at are already part of the contest. So lots of ways you can get involved, Barry, for, if you're someone who plays huge tickets and big money, or if you're someone who plays on a more affordable bankroll, because that's kind of how you and I play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We take some chip shots and get in low, try to get out high. That's the name of the game.
So let's dive on in to the pick 5 on Saturday at Saratoga. You want to follow along with us. We're looking at the daily racing form past performances. We're looking at races 9 through 13, all of them grade 1 races. These are the all access PPs. So you can see that if you're someone who grew up with that classic daily racing form, this is it for you right here in the classic. Formulator is nice because it has the ability. These are the ones that we always use. It gives you the ability to click on the charts, to click on the race replays, to click on the trainer statistics, the pedigree, all these different tools for you. And then Timeform US, sometimes we pop on over there, see what the pace projector thinks, in particular to see how they really feel the races could shape up. So lots of different tools here for you when you're using the daily racing form past performances. Barry, we start out with the grade 1 personal ensign, and we have to start with Torpedo Anna, because she was able to bounce back nicely in the Fleur de Lis. But you can really see with this filly, she has not really progressed on speed figures a whole lot from last year. She won the Apple Blossom and she won the Azeri earlier in the year. Both of those races, solid efforts. the La Troyenne was really the first time that we saw her not show up in her career, have some kind of trouble. She didn't have the best trip. She kind of got bumped around, but she just backed up. She did not really fire. She bounced back nicely. That's what you want to see. So positive in that sense. I will say this is probably the toughest field she's ever faced if these horses all show up with closer to one of their best, like their A game. Leslie's Rose just came off of a really good effort. So if she were to show up with a good one, that would make her a player. Dorth Vader is affiliate as a mare now that you and I have played a few different times. She won the Phipps. That was kind of her day because she had trouble in the La Troyenne, and she was just a little flat in the Molly Pictor most recently. Randomized, we know she's really quick. If she gets the right circumstances, she's certainly capable of winning this race. Even Raging Sea, who hasn't been quite as good this year as well, she's certainly capable of winning this race. So while I do think you start with Anna, Barry, if these fillies or mares were to each show up with their best, 4 or 5 of them all have pretty good A games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Torpedo Anna is in a real tough spot.
Yeah, I do too.
Because of the fact that, well, where she's drawn, first of all. In a race like this with all the speed inside of her, is she gonna hang back? And
Be
that's the
farther
question.
back than normal or have to work a little bit harder to
Exactly.
sit
So
that trip.
they're gonna have to make that decision early, and it might
Because
be a
randomized is going to get the
situation.
lead, right? Most
Absolutely.
likely from the inside post position, because they know with that mare, she just isn't the same at all when she doesn't get that half length lead or so, and she's able to establish herself.
Well, beyond that, um, I don't know what kind of trip Torpedo Anna can get not trying for the lead.
Yeah, I agree. I think she needs to be really close and wants to be. And if Dazzling Move is trying to put a little pressure on, that's also a trip that Dorth Vader wants to not be too far out of it. And she's inside of Torpedo Anna. You have Bernie Takes Charge. She's if she runs in this race because she's entered in another one, she's got to be forwardly placed. That's what she's been at her absolute best. And I mean, she's run 2 of the last 3 races speed figures that wouldn't put her that far out of it. So you can understand why they want to take a swing maybe and see where she stacks up. And then Leslie's Rose kind of wants that similar trip too, Barry. She could be floated pretty wide or
See,
have to make that decision.
I think that Leslie's Rose is the one that's going to get the best of this
Sits
whole
behind.
scenario and sits
Yeah.
behind. I think she can come from farther back.
Yeah.
She kind of did it in the Devona Dale back in 2024.
Yep.
I think she was just still learning how to run, and then she got quick, and a lot of paces kind of just fell in her lap. And I think this is one of those situations where the pace is just going to fall right into her hands. Because the only other horse I really think that could beat her is Torpedo Anna, and she's not going to get a great trip. So if Torpedo Anna wins, which she definitely could, it's going to be interesting to see what style they employ.
So I completely agree. And because with Leslie's Rose, she's at least used to having to get the kind of trip she'll probably get on Saturday, where she'll sit 2 or 3 lengths off the pace. She's shown us she can do that. She's naturally quick. So in some of these races, she just ends up close, but that feels like the trip she's going to get. I completely agree. She's a major player. And just kind of looking at the way the pick 5 lays out, there are a couple races where I think you have some formidable short prices where you're either going to be favorite or maybe second choice, or you're not really going to have big prices. This is probably the race where I'm the most okay trying to take a shot against with a couple different ones. Leslie's Rose is in the mix for me. I think I'd want to use randomized just because she could be the one that holds that position down on the inside. If anyone is like the speed of the speed, I think it might be her. I wouldn't want to play her necessarily on the win end, but from a pick 5, I probably want to use her just in case that happens, Barry. Because she likes Saratoga, and if everybody is kind of sitting a little bit off and she just goes on with it, maybe a situation where some of the other jocks are kind of looking at Anna waiting for Torpedo Anna to make their move, and this gal kind of sneaks away a little bit. I think I had 1, 4, and 6 as my horses that I think are the most intriguing in here.
Yeah, I really just think it's just Leslie's Rose and
What would
Torpedo
be like
Anna.
the lowest price you would want to take on Leslie's Rose on like a win end if you were playing her?
I'd take 3-1 on her.
Yeah, that's fair. I would. This is. I am curious how the race gets bet because Torpedo Anna does have the reputation, but I do feel like when you go through the field, you there are a couple other legitimate alternatives in here that you could feel like take some money. It's so funny with Darth Vader. She does seem like she has a nice pattern coming into this race because she had that legitimate trouble on May 2nd in the La Troyenne. She was best that day. And then in the Ogden Phipps, she bounces back with a huge performance. And it's not as if she's a horse that just relishes the sloppy tracks because she's been equally as good on speed figures on the dirt. Randomized just got the trip, was able to dictate things, and you could see Darth Vader was just a little bit flat. She kind of ran the same sort of race, but when she just loomed up, she just didn't have the punch. I wouldn't be shocked if she can sit a little bit more behind. Like you're saying, if we're looking at the trip and she can be one that sits with Leslie's Rose, they take behind a little bit, they sit and they move. I could see her bouncing back with the nice one. I didn't know what to do with Raging Sea, Barry.
Yeah, I mean Darth Vader, no thank you. There's
You've
a
hit her a
long
few good times. Yeah.
long time between drinks. She's just not consistent enough. She doesn't win races, and she's usually kind of around it. I really can't see her unless she falls into some sort of great trip, which is possible, I suppose. But I how can you trust her in a spot like this? And Raging Sea could be another one that could get slept on a little bit because of the fact that this pace could heat up front. If randomized Torpedo Anna, Dazzling Move, and Bernie takes charge, kind of tussle, that could open it up for Raging Sea to kind of swoop past them all late.
She was so consistent with the speed figures, and she's just regressed a little bit this year. But it's funny, she still won the La Troyenne and then finished third in her last couple. She was not really close in either of those races. You can make an excuse for the sloppy track race. Maybe she just, a horse like her, she gets too far behind on the sloppy track. She's not going to be able to close a lot of times there. The Shuvi again was just a little disappointing, and that's what's tricky about her is she's got those same rivals to deal with here. But if she does float up, you just don't usually see horses for these connections float up, right? But she might in this race because she is a little cold, like on the board, and people have backed her the last 2 times as favorites, and she hasn't been close. People might be a little sick of her right now. You know what I mean? Like they just might be looking for someone different because
Well,
we were
I'll
expecting her to take that step forward, right?
I'll
Again.
say this. She might actually um, be really, really important in this race because of the fact that she likes this track.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to if she's going to run her best race, it's probably going to be on Saturday.
There's a version of this race. I say this a lot, right? You have to think about things out of 100. If this race is run 100 different times, all these different variables happen, right? These different things could happen. There's absolutely a version of this race where the 1 goes, the 2 goes, the 4, Darth Vader is really close and putting pressure on because she doesn't want to be far. The 5 goes, the 6, Leslie's Rose, is close, putting pressure on, and Torpedo Anna is close, either on the lead or putting pressure on. I don't think that's going to happen, but that certainly would happen at least a couple times out of 100. Where everybody's just a little too close. They're all putting pressure on each other. And all of a sudden, Raging Sea is the most comfortable, sitting 6 or 7 lengths out of it. And where they're all kind of jockeying, 1 or 2 of these horses get shuffled back. She gets a great trip, just kind of loping along and then making 1 late move. So you just have to you have to have a price for you where if she is that price, then that's worth it. For me, that's probably between 6 and 8 to 1 in a spot like this.
Yeah, Yeah, that's fair.
Not too much higher than her morning line, but just a little bit more to where that price is what brings me into using her. And what's nice is if you're playing the pick 5, you'll be able to tell when you play this race because you'll see how they're getting bet. And if she does float up and you say, yeah, you know what? I don't want Raging Sea at 8-1 to knock me out. She's definitely worth using and tossing a few extra bucks in there. Anything else you want to mention on the personal ensign, my friend?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, 5 of them coming back from that Ogden Phipps, which was won by Darth Vader, but it was in the slop. So it's really hard to kind of take that one race back because some of those horses didn't like the slop. It felt like it was that peak race for Darth Vader. We'll see what happens on Saturday. We move to race number 10. This one is the Grade 1 Alan Jerkins Memorial, 7 furlong sprint for 3-year-olds. Another race where, honestly, any one of these 8 horses really wouldn't be a shock. Any one of them. You can make your cases for how you tier them up and who are the more likely winners. Patch Adams is coming off the Grade 1 Woody Stevens win. He's won back-to-back, and you can just see he is a sprinter. When they've turned him back, he's been a fantastic sprinter. There is not that much need the lead early speed in here. When you go through this field, Midland Money could certainly get a little sneaky on the front end. This horse has tons of ability and has that big gap in between, but he shows back up in here and he'll be the biggest price of the Bafferts. And a lot of times that's the Baffert that wins. Barnes should like the cutback. He'll be sitting off the pace a little bit here. He didn't want to go as long and he had to face journalism a couple times. Chancellor McPatrick woke back up with a win most recently. He was a Grade 1 horse going 7 furlongs. Verifier's undefeated. Smokin' Wicked just comes off of a career best effort with a 101 buyer in the Amsterdam. And then you have Captain Cook. He's 12-1. He's the longest shot in the field. He doesn't really have bad races. He just didn't progress from the Withers earlier in the year where we were hoping for more from him. But I think he should be a lot better as a sprinter here. And then Mattakit Road was second in the Woody Stevens. None of these horses are really out of the question, Barry.
No, not at all. Captain Cook is really interesting to me because I think they just had the wrong distance with this horse. And then cutting back last time, I like to see when horses get a run in after cutting back that far. The second time out is when they come back really strong.
I think he's going to sit a little bit more here too.
And that was the other thing is
right.
I think by design they went to the lead to see, where this horse kind of fit.
And he was down on the inside, right? So it's tough. You're in a field of 11. You're down inside. You don't want to get shuffled too far back.
Right.
So you have to make that decision. You go on, you try to hold your position and you try to go on with it. Now, drawn to the outside, feels like a totally different trip with the blinkers coming off.
Exactly. And I think this horse is going to sit a good trip here because there's plenty of speed up front. Not anybody that really wants to kind of rev up and be on the engine, but I think it's going to end up that way because Midland Money is definitely going to have to
He's got to go. Yeah, for sure.
Barnes is probably going to get in the picture. Smokin' Wicked is probably best when on.
You have a lot of these want to be close, right? It's another, like we were just talking about. I could absolutely see this being where they're 5 or 6 wide because they're all trying to sit close. And I could see a few different versions of it. I definitely think the 2 is the fastest, but there could be a bunch of horses right behind putting that pressure on him because I don't think a lot of these want to come from way out of it.
Right. And like the 2 outside horses, basically, for me, Captain Cook and Mattakit Road. Mattakit Road can definitely sit, has a good foundation of going longer, and being wide I don't think is really going to bother this horse too much. It might actually be better that this horse is out in the clear like that. I think those 2 really are going to get nice trips here because they're quick enough to get into position without, going overboard, trying to get there. Once they're there, they can cruise and then kind of swallow up that speed. And I think they're both going to get nice trips in this race.
It's a really fascinating race because there are a couple of these horses that feel kind of similar. They were the supposed to be good Derby horses early on, right? Patch Adams He didn't want to go that far. Barnes was the best of the Bafferts early on. He didn't want to go that far. Chancellor McPatrick was one of the top 2-year-olds after the Hopeful and the Champagne. He didn't really want to go that far and hasn't really quite progressed. He won the Curlin, so he can get the distance, but he hasn't really stepped forward this year. You had Captain Cook, who after the Withers, who was favored in the Wood Memorial. Now he cuts back. And the same thing with Mattakit Road early on in his career. He's in the Bob Lewis, he's in the Rebel, he's in those big races. Now he cuts back. You just have a lot of these horses that kind of feel similar. They're good now, right? They're in this grade 1 race, but they were supposed to be maybe Derby horses or horses that were going to be good going longer. And now they've found their niche here, cutting back to a sprint. What do we do with Verifier?
I mean, I don't know. I'm still not sold on that horse.
I'm not
Especially
either.
in a spot like this where there's other speed.
He got a pretty good trip last time. I don't know how. I want to see him beat a field like this. Beat a good group like this. I know he beat Smoke 'em Wicked and Captain Cook. He ended up getting a really nice trip in there. And it might be a little bit different in here because I don't think he's that fast. Like, I think he really wants to sit off a little bit. He's not quite as fast right out of the gate as some of the really fast horses in here. So then if he's a little bit behind and then he's in between horses.
Well, in this race, his post position, he probably can't do that because he's
right?
going to get it from both sides.
People to the outside
We'll
and
have
inside.
to go out and around everybody, and that might, be running a mile race instead of a 7 furlong race.
I was gonna say pressure to the outside. I said people. I guess people on the horses, right? Horses putting the pressure on them to the outside. Patch sat really nice trips in his last 2. The thing is about him, now he's gonna get the rail draw, and he sat really good trips kind of out in the middle of the track, out in the clear, and it might be a little bit different from him down there, getting shuffled back a little, and that could be the difference between winning and losing in a competitive race. I would not be shocked at all to see him right back in the winner's circle, but I don't want to take 5-2 or less on him down there on the inside.
Yeah. It's still, it's such a precarious position because you don't want to get dusted by Midland Money and Barnes early and then kind of be chasing at that point because
yeah,
it's just such a bad spot to be in. It's a terrible draw in this race, and I'd have a real hard time keeping this horse on any of my tickets.
So I saw Nick Tamro post this, a similar stat online. I wanted to just kind of confirm it. The Brad Cox barn has been struggling a little bit, not 30 months, 3 months. Has been struggling a little bit in the last like month or so with horses in spots like this, where you have graded stakes winners that might be a pretty short price. So yeah, I think it's even more. So if you look just like one for the last 7, just with, with some of these graded stakes winners and look at some of the horses that have gotten beat, some short prices. First Mission, Good Cheer, obviously wins with Destino d'Oro. I think if you even looked at like Dirt, and you looked at the past like 2 months, you can, customize it however you want and go time frame, 2 months, and we'll see. So that's what's cool about this feature here. So just 2 for the last 17, with graded stakes in the last couple months, and you see a lot of short prices. Now with the barn like this, that bounces back, right? They have so many horses that they're going to go through stretches like this, but just certainly something to keep an eye on because he has a couple of these horses on Saturday at Saratoga that you may not want to take too short of a price for a barn who's been struggling a little bit at the highest levels. Competitive spot here. Anything else to mention about the Jerkins? I mean, cool Louisiana bred, Smoke and Wicked. I feel like I just don't like playing horses like this after those wins because it just feels like, that was the big win last time out that you got.
Right.
And I think he could be really competitive back, but Is he going to go up off that 101 buyer speed figure, or probably come back to like the low 90s where he had been sort of living when that was his peak for a while?
Yes, I'm in total agreement. Last time was the time to have him.
Yep.
Although his price is probably going to get a little better, but his
Yeah.
chances are not as good. This is just a way better field than that.
Overall, much more competitive. You could legitimately make cases for each of these 8 horses in the field. So look for a little bit of value. If you feel that way, maybe you feel different and you think there's a standout in here. The grade 1, Alan Jerkins, race 10. I'm definitely going to be using the 2, the 3, and the 2 outside horses for sure for me, because I do think there might be a version where Midland Money is just the quickest. And I always see these situations where Baffert's got the multiple horses. You're looking at the other 2, and then it's this horse that wins. Barnes cutting back should be great. I mean, all of the Bafferts feel well spotted at the distance. And then I think David also likes Captain Cook and had him on top. And that was the first horse that Barry went right to, Captain Cook, hoping for a little different trip. Now, second start back at the sprint distance at 7 furlongs here. Don't forget, you can check out race previews for all the big races on the Daily Racing Forum YouTube for free. David and Mike Beer previewed a bunch of the Saratoga races. And then Barry, we started the Off the Track podcast. We're up to like 8 different guests so far. We had Kendrick Carmouche on last week. It was so cool getting to talk to him. Mark Cassie was on a couple weeks ago. For anyone who hasn't seen it, you can download this anywhere you get your podcasts, or you can watch it on YouTube. I have a couple clips to show. Here's one from a few weeks ago. This was with Andy B. and Cone from FanDuel TV. For you, when did you really start becoming a bigger part of your dad's operation?
Well, I mean, I think in the first grade, it said, "What is your dream job?" And I said, "I want to be my dad's assistant." Like that was what I wrote down. I was like, "Dang, you didn't have very high aspirations, girl." No, just kidding. But I was always kind of daddy's girl, always following him around. But I really became a full-time part of his operation after I graduated high school. I did a year of community college at Pasadena City College, and I was really depressed. Like I was just in a very bad place. I struggled with my mental health a lot in high school, kind of like an astray teen. And I just told my dad everything. I was like, "Dad, like I'm going down a bad path. Like I'm depressed, like all this stuff." And he was like, "You're moving to Florida. Let's go." Like, cause he had moved his string out there. So I moved out there and I galloped for him. That's when I started learning how to gallop. He started with 1 horse, and then 1 became 5, and 5 became shipping me around with his horses. This was 2019. That was my 20th birthday present, was I got to sit on a racehorse.
And that was a blast talking with Andy. And it's really cool for me, Barry, because I get to meet a lot of these people that I didn't really know that well. And she is so fun, and you just sort of, she has a great energy. When you talk with her, you know that she loves horses, and getting to hear people talk about how like horse racing saved them for some of these guests so far. Jason Beam was another one, and Andy was the same thing, talking about like these horses like saved her life.
Yeah, there's incredible stories out there, and it's great that you're, out and getting them on here and highlighting a lot of it. Kendrick Carmouche, the things that he's been through, and stuff
He's
that
like
Andy's.
such a pro. Like
Yeah.
he's such a professional, and he was talking about how like just things that we all have big egos and probably think we're the best and we can do this and we can do that. And he was talking about how I went to Parks, and I felt like I needed to be there for a while to learn this, to grow, to this and that. He talked about when he went to Charlestown, that helped him learn like track biases and what he needed to do on horses. And then there was a moment where he talked to his wife, and he's like, "You know what? I'm ready. Let's put the big boy pants on." And he said, let's go up to New York and do it. So man, it's cool because most of my conversations through the last few years with you and with other people gambling, talking about racing, right? Talking about the pick 5 here. It's really a different podcast because we're not doing a lot of handicapping races at all. It's about the stories for these people who are involved. So Andy was a great guest. We had Billy Koch on talking about ownership. We had I almost cried yesterday with Doug O'Neill came on. I had to make sure I didn't cry because I was talking about how when I was sick and Doug visited me in the hospital and came in there and brought me some gifts. And he gave Milo a gift when he was born. He sent us one of those rockers and stuff. So I appreciate Doug. He's a good buddy.
Real cool.
And so I was getting a little emo at the end when I was talking about some of the things he's done for us. But let's get back to handicapping these grade 1 races. Barry, we're moving along to race number 11. This one's the grade 1 ballerina. And you don't have the horses who have been at the top of the division. And I think that makes this a little more of a competitive race because Copian in here, she'd be a pretty short price. Ways and Means in here, she'd be a pretty short price. Probably even Vava, who's running at Charlestown this weekend. Any of them in this race would probably be a short price and feel like they were maybe head and shoulders above the rest of the field. Scylla has some back class. She hasn't been able to get into the winner circle for a while, Barry. You can probably make some legitimate excuses when you go through her form. She was second in this race last year behind Society, and Society ran a huge race that day. Then in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, Scylla had a really weird trip. She was way closer than she needed to be early, and then she kind of went back and then came on again. She ran a huge race that day. Didn't even run poorly in the Derby City Distaff. She was fourth, 3 horses in front of her, all pretty solid. It was her first start off the bench. She was in the slop. Then she loses when Ways and Means freaks in the bed of roses. So you can go through each of the races. They're not bad. It's just once you start getting to like 6, 7, 8 in a row where you're not winning, then I get a little bit concerned with taking too short of a price. Where do you stand with Scylla?
I'm probably gonna be sort of down on her. I know this race kind of sets up in her favor, and I know Bill Mott's barn is kind of starting to heat up maybe a little bit, but she just doesn't feel right for this race.
I agree.
I think there's other horses that can actually get the jump on her and outfinish her, namely the 8, My Main Squeeze.
Totally agree.
I think this horse likes this distance, which I believe a lot of these horses don't. You see a lot of these horses, especially the speed horses, that kind of quit late, and there's going to be a tussle up front. I mean, you got Mystic Lake, Bright Work, Majestic Oops will probably get involved. Helena's Forte will probably push the pace too.
And the 9's got to go from the
right.
outside.
So there's going to be a lot of pace up front.
And the 8's not going. She just went to the lead last time out in a New York bred race that she was better than those horses. And I think it was one of those situations where it's like, let's just put her on the lead.
Do what we got to do.
She's better. We don't want to get tricky. It was probably because they had a few races in a row where she didn't win. So then you get like overly aggressive sometimes and say, let's just make sure we get out front. She should sit a really nice trip in here. And she just feels like she's going to be in a good spot. I think she was one of the first horses I gravitated towards as well in this race.
Yeah, and the other is the Safi Joseph horse, the 5 Claret Barrette.
She's a new horse right now.
Yeah, and you know, if you look at Be Your Best in her past performances, they look really similar to this.
It's a good call.
And you know, one of the differences it's
turf
instead of dirt.
But they showed more speed, right?
Yes.
Like the tactical speed, the sitting close and getting them involved in the races.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be the plan with Irad, to get her right close to that pace and be, you know, get first run. And I think that might be the winning move in this race. I like the way she's going. She's been up at Saratoga basically since July, and it is really cranking it up. You can see her workouts have been, in my opinion, getting better. Even though the last one's a slower than the one before, I think that was a more solid work.
So the 5 and the 8 were a couple of the horses that Barry and I started with in here. The The 9 is probably on the ticket for me, just in case. I think if any of the speeds hang around, I wouldn't be shocked if it's this one. I like the outside draw. Her form overall is not bad, especially her last few when she's just getting beat by Copian, and Too Sharp kind of freaked that day as well in the winning colors. They've given her a couple months off now, kind of a nice starting over spot for her. The one that I was curious about in here, gosh, I've liked her a lot. I just think she's not quite the same horse that she was earlier on in her career, was Bright Work. Because I could see her sitting a nice trip just behind the speeds in here. And she certainly likes Saratoga, where she's run some of her best races here, Barry. But is she just, on paper, she's certainly not moving in the right direction. You could get rewarded with her for price. What do you think about her?
Yeah, there's just too much to be desired here. I mean, she showed promise early on and just has lost her way.
Yep.
I think she just didn't make the jump from 3 to 4, and she's just not as good as she once was. She got that perfect trip in the prior S, and that's really the last we've seen of her. She hasn't been close since.
I mean, kind of by default, when I went through this field, down on the inside, I was a little worried about Mystic Lake. She also could be running at Charlestown on Friday. She's entered there. Bright Work, we sort of talked about why I don't really love her as much. I tried to get there with her. I wanted to. Majestic Oops, I'm kind of worried about her trip. I think she'll be kind of caught up in it early on. Helena's Forte, I feel like she needs to take another step forward, even off of her honorable miss, which was a career best effort for her. So you sort of go through the horses, and then you get to, like, to me, the 5 and the 8, the two that we talked about, they look like the horses that are the bettable prices in the race. That makes sense. 7 and 9, sure, logical. Hope Road and Scylla. Probably don't want to bet those horses at those shortish prices. And then when you, by default, it leaves you with a couple. Zetlos, funnily enough, you and I have talked about this. She's actually not as good at the distances that you think she should be good at, right? She's not as good at like 6.5 and 7 furlongs as she is at just 6 furlongs, which is sort of strange for a horse with her running style. You just figure the longer sprint would be better for her, but she hasn't quite been. I think by process of elimination, if I'm getting 4 to 1 and above on the 5 and the 8, those look to me like the horses that make the most sense at those prices in this race.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just so weird how this race might get bet, because I think, like, you were kind of getting at, that Bright Work is interesting in this spot, if she does, or if she's able to wake up. And then if Mystic Lake comes out, that might shuffle things a little bit too, and Helena's Forte might take a little bit of money. So this is real interesting. I'm not really sure what to do with Scylla.
Yeah, she's a tricky read.
Yeah, and it's like almost heading the direction that this might be, whoever's favored might be 3 to 1.
Yeah, that's probably how it should be right now, because Scylla's not in her best form. Hope Road is fine. My Main Squeeze should be probably right behind them. Clara Beret probably right behind them in prices. Like, so there should be maybe a few horses in that 5 to 1 and below range, but I don't know about anybody too short in what feels like a competitive renewal of the Grade 1 Ballerina. Right now you have Copian, you have Ways and Means, and Sweet Azteca, actually, who beat Copian. She's very good in Southern California. The issues that she has is she just has some gaps in her career where you kind of forget about her because she's out of sight, out of mind. But when she shows up, she's certainly good and capable of big efforts. So we'll see what this filly and mare sprint division looks like after this weekend. So I believe you have the Rancho Bernardo's on Sunday. We'll see if Sweet Azteca ends up getting entered in that in the next couple days. Let's move to the Forego. So we'll have shorter price favorites in the final 2 Grade 1s of the sequence here. This race, I mean, have to start with Bookham Dano. He's been really good, and he's the type of horse who's got some versatility to him. He can sit just a couple lengths off in striking range. he is coming off of 2 monster races, Barry, where it feels like I don't know if he's going to get 114 buyer in this race. Right? I feel like pattern-wise, he's probably hit his peak. But does he regress back to like 104-ish, 105? And that is still fine. He's formidable off of his recent races. And what's kind of tough is Mulliken hasn't really been doing anything wrong. You know, you look at Mulliken's form from when he won the 4-go last year. He's third in the Breeders' Cup Sprint behind Straight No Chaser, who comes out of that race and then goes on and wins in Saudi. He's second in the Cigar Mile, which is probably a little farther than what he wants, but he runs a bang-up race that day. He actually finishes in front of Bookham Dano there in the Cigar Mile, in front of Post Time. He comes back and makes his first start of the year in the Churchill Downs. It's a really good fifth. He's only behind Mindframe, Banishing, Nisos, and Bookham Dano. And then he has to deal with Bookham Dano 2 races in a row where he basically runs career best races and just not quite good enough to hold off Dano. So those are the top 2 just from what they've been doing recently. Then you have these Brad Cox horses down on the inside. Most Wanted, who's cutting back from races going a little bit longer. He hasn't really won a race against a group this tough, but he did face Rattle and Roll. He finished in front of the Dubai World Cup winner Hit Show. He wasn't too far behind Skippy Longstocking, and he wasn't too far behind Fierceness. So he's faced some pretty good horses there while he hasn't really won the big race quite yet. But the 2 Brad Cox horses look almost identical. Like, he's handled them really nicely. Neither one of them has ever been worse than second with Most Wanted in Bishop's Bay. They look a little similar on paper too with their running styles. They don't want to be too far out of it. You don't really envision them sitting 4 or 5 lengths off the pace. What do we do with these 2 horses down inside, Barry? Yeah, they're tricky reads in this race.
Well, I think they're going to have to go, and it's going to get hot up front. And I think Bookham Dano might get caught up in that because I don't really think that this horse wants to really come from too far back. And that opens the door for horses like Scotland.
I was going to say, are you going to get a little crazy? I was wondering if
I'm going Extra Anejo and
okay.
Crazy Mason as well. I think they stand to sit really good trips. In particular, Extra Anejo, who seems to like this distance, got a nice tune-up back in June and seems to be training forwardly into this spot. I know we see Ben Curtis aboard, which is also interesting considering who could have rode this horse and who is riding others.
Yeah. I had him in 4th. I think I will use him in my pick 4s and pick 5s. He's the type of horse who I like to bet because we know his big races are really good, and he's probably even a little more talented than some of the high speed figures when he's right. He's just a little inconsistent. He'll sometimes go in and out because of race shape or some of the spots he's been in. At 20-1, I would not talk you off him at all. I think another horse that you mentioned is interesting, Crazy Mason, who just didn't really have a shot last time at Del Mar. The way that race set up, he was inside, was at 6 furlongs. He just didn't come running at all. 2 starts back. He's behind Bookham Dano and Mulliken, but that's at 6.5. That's in the slop. It's probably a little harder for him to close. If this race does heat up from inside to outside, you could see a lot of horses like Doc Sullivan has to go a little bit to hold position so he's not hooked way, way wide. Hold My Bourbon just won on the lead. I don't think they want to try to come from way, way out of it in here. Same thing for Over and Ollie. These are horses that won recently on the lead for new connections. Why would they try to change tactics when it worked well for them? They may not be as quick or as classy as some of the other speed horses. Mulliken, I honestly think he's going to and I think that the tactics might be with Pratt jumping back aboard let's do what we did last year in the Forego. And let's just see if we can get out in front early instead of trying to sit off and wait for Bookham Dano and move. Let's just get out in front of them early on. And that may not work well in this spot. But I wouldn't be shocked if they try something a little bit different where they've been trying to kind of sit and wait and then move in front of Dano and close with him. I don't know if that's really the move that you want to do. You probably want to try to get out in front earlier, but there are some other quick horses in here. I think this race is a little bit harder than just Bookham Dano, and I feel like a lot of people are going to probably come into this race and the final two shortening up in this pick 5 sequence. But I wonder if he kind of hit his peak in his last 2 races. Those are really big races from him back to back.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm skeptical that he can put these kind of races together like this, and this isn't the best spot for him either. I mean, this is the toughest field he's faced in a little bit.
Because he's got his big rival, Mulligan. Like the Churchill Downs was tough. He didn't win that race. But his last 2, they've been softer, easier spots than this. Just the presence of the 2 Brad Cox horse down on the inside. They're tricky. You add extra Anejo in the mix. You bring Mulligan right back. You bring Crazy Mason back at a better distance. You've got some sharp horses that are long shots, but they just come off of big wins for their new barns. And then a horse like Scotland, I think I interrupted you and you were trying to talk a little bit about him. Go more on Scotland.
Yeah, I think Scotland is going to really sit a good trip because this horse, A, likes Saratoga, and B, likes the distance. Had enough time, came off the layoff, ran real good in the mud, despite that not really being the thing that he wants to do. They get a fast track on Saturday. He came out of that race, the July 12th race, really well, and trained very forwardly into this spot. Junior really can't do anything wrong lately in races like this. I think he's going to put this horse in the right spot, which is not going to be too far back, because you find in these kind of races when the pace gets heated up front, those horses still hang around, and the winners typically don't come closing from way back unless the whole race falls apart, and that usually doesn't happen because of the quality of horses that you have in fields like this.
I've always liked this horse, and if you're just looking at his pattern of races, he fits really well in here. As he kind of tailed off form a little bit early on in his career after the big wins. This horse was only 9-2. I mean, in the Travers 2 years ago, he was 7-1. He's 9-2 in the Pennsylvania Derby a couple years ago when Saudi Crown wins. And he was a little disappointing. He was your beaten favorite his first few starts as a 4-year-old in 2024. Then he wins at Saratoga last year. Seems obvious he likes Saratoga as well. When you look at his form over the last couple of years, he's run really good races over this track. And instead of trying to worry about getting him to go longer, they've been able to keep him right about the mile-ish. Because 6 furlongs is too short for him too. Right? Like 7 to a mile is probably what he wants best.
See, I think they were running him way over his head, going a mile and 1/8 mile.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think 7 to a mile, because I think he's in that mile or range.
I think 6.5 would probably be ideal.
Yep.
But seven suits him very well, and he's going to get the trip. You see those races September last year. He in the Vosburg, he really didn't like that track and ran okay on it.
Yeah.
Then the one after that in the Bold Ruler, he was just hung out wide. But if you eliminate those 2 races and his other wet track efforts,
all of a sudden now the form looks way better. You've got a lot of those 90, mid 90, high 90 speed figures in the mix. It just makes sense. Take out those 6 furlong races that are a little short. The one that you mentioned with the trouble there in the Bold Ruler. He just feels like a horse who now his second start as a 5-year-old. He can take a little step forward off of that. And he comes out of a race that the race makes sense. Concrete Glory won that race, Lone Speed. Little Knee was sitting close. He just couldn't get up. And then he came right back to win and earned a 96 Beyer speed figure. So it just fits really well coming into this race. He's a good pick 5 type of horse to use who should be a fair price in here in what's a competitive race. Because money's going to be spread out a lot in this race. I don't think he's going to get overbet because horses like Bookham Dano and horses like Mulligan. So I think you should get in the 10 to 1-ish range on Scotland.
Yeah, I think we're going to get all of that and maybe a little more, depending what happens with like Crazy Mason. I have the feeling that horse is going to get bet a little bit, and people are going to excuse the Bing Crosby, which you kind of can. They didn't draw well, and really would have had to circle everybody to win. And that day at Del Mar, nobody was really closing at anything. And before that, in the slop against Bookham Dano, just didn't get the kind of pace they needed to outrun anybody. With everything the way it looks on paper, I think people might gravitate and play this horse a little bit more.
That is the grade 1 4 go. It's going to go as race number 12. Bookham Dano's the horse to beat. Barry and I looking at some interesting price horses in here. Scotland is one of them. Another horse could get a really nice trip. Crazy Mason, we're talking about from off the pace. Barry started with the 5 extra Anejo as another who could get a really great trip in here. And then you have the 2 horses who have just been in great form, Bookham Dano and Mulligan. What do you want to do with them? They'll be 2 of the shorter prices in here. Let's move to the Travers. Just a field of 5 in the grade 1 Travers this year. All eyes will be on Sovereignty, who won the Derby, won the Belmont, won the Jim Dandy. Funny though, when you're just looking at speed figures, and if you didn't know these horses and you're just comparing them off of their resume and off of their PPs, if you looked at Sovereignty and then you looked over at Magnitude, like Magnitude's recent races, just based on the figures and the numbers, they stack up really well with Sovereignty. The biggest question with this horse, Barry, we really have no idea who he is, like how good he is, because the 2 races he's won, the Risen Star, he freaks, he beats an okay field that day, but he's 43 to 1. He wasn't going into that race as some dominant horse that we were expecting it from. He was a huge long shot. The races come back fine. You can look through some of these horses who have won, but East Avenue didn't get the trip, didn't get to the lead, and you kind of wonder if East Avenue's up there with him, does that change the complexion of the race? I don't know. Who knows? Then he's off. He's kind of out of sight, out of mind through the Triple Crown races. He shows back up in a perfect comeback race. The Iowa Derby, it's a race where it's a small field. He's able to get out front. He's able to show that speed that he wants, cruises, opens up, perfect tune-up race to then face tougher. I mean, he has not dealt with horses even close to the horses that Sovereignty's been beating, like Journalism and Baeza, and even running against Tapan Street previously. So from a class standpoint, we have no idea. Those are the 2 who everyone's going to start the talking with. I really do think that the 3, Strategic Focus, is a talented horse. And when you watch his races, this certainly may be too much for him at this point. He really feels like the type of horse that the blinkers are going to help a lot. Like he is one of those talented horses that's just quirky. He absolutely should have won the Curlin, and he lost because of himself. Like he's just green late, and you could tell he hasn't figured it all out. But wow, this is the type of horse who has a ton of ability, and the blinkers will really help. I just don't know if it's in this spot with a couple other good horses. Before we get even too much, could you make a case at all for the other 2, Bracket Buster or McAfee in here?
No.
I couldn't. It wouldn't really shock me. Like Strategic Focus would be a surprise, but as I'm saying, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. Magnitude, we can see it happening. Sovereignty, obviously. So we've kind of got it down to like 3 top contenders in here. Go ahead, my friend. How do you see this thing playing up?
I had the notion that there's a version of this race where Sovereignty actually could go to the lead and just bury him
in a small field and just say, like, I'm not going to worry about this.
Yeah, because I mean, to me, there's still question marks a little bit with Magnitude. Two really, really easy, good trips, albeit somewhat fast.
Yeah, like just on speed figures, they stack up well with Sovereignty, but no clue who he's beat, pressure, anything like that, right?
Right, exactly. And, if Sovereignty, I mean, he's just a better horse all the way around. You saw that last time when he kind of pressed the pace a little bit and took over and dominated, just asserted his
That's what's
whole
been so
being
scary
on that field.
In the last two races, how much closer he's been early, because that was the knock on him and the way you tried to beat him in races like the Florida Derby, where it's like, okay, he's going to come from out of it to Pan Street, will get the jump on him. And then the Kentucky Derby looked like, you know what, there's a good amount of speed. This race is going to really set up nicely for him, and it did. Then all of a sudden in the Belmont, he's like right on top to start the race. And they're just kind of keeping him out in the clear. In the Jim Dandy, he literally broke on top of the field. And Junior had an opportunity to pick what he wanted to do. So we're looking at the Jim Dandy here. Sovereignty's the 5. He's the first horse out of the gate in this race, which is not what we'd seen from him at all before.
No.
Right? Because now that gives him so many options. This is one conversation that I had with Kendrick, and he said, it's not always just about going to the lead. It's about getting out of the gate quickly and comfortably, and that gives me options. Because then all of a sudden, if I'm a little bit farther ahead of one of these horses that think they're supposed to be ahead of me, their jockey has to overcompensate just to get in front of me, and all of a sudden, I know that horse might be done. They already kind of ran their race just trying to get to their spot. So when you have a horse like this now that can get out of the gate that quickly, that's what makes him so scary right now.
Yeah, I mean, if he's that sharp, that's how you know he's sharp when he breaks like that. And I don't expect anything different, because from what the barn and the connections are saying, that he wasn't even fully cranked up for that Jim Dandy. That's a scary thought, but I mean, I really don't see too much going on up front other than Magnitude and Sovereignty up front.
So
it just seems like they're going to cruise and take off at the top of the stretch, unless, Bracket Buster really just takes off, and then, those two settle in. And if that's the case, then it might be real difficult for Magnitude to be in this race. I mean, I don't really think this horse really wants to pass anybody.
No, and I believe David and Mike Beer were talking about this on the DRF preview, because we pull up the Timeform US projector, and these are really nice a lot of the time, but like any kind of algorithm or any number that's based off of a formulator or off of a formula, there are holes, right? Sometimes those things are in an exact science, right? You don't handicap intent a lot of times, or sometimes post position or different things like that. So it'll take into account the last 5 races, and sometimes a couple of these horses are coming out of races that might have slightly quicker early fractions, so that could put them on the lead. I think with Magnitude drawing the rail, the inside, for them, they have to be thinking, even if we go a little faster early, let's get as far up ahead of this horse and the rest of these horses as we can early on, right? I think that's what they're going to try to do.
They're going to have to, because if they're not quick enough and the 2 gets in front of them, it might be curtains.
Completely agree.
If, I'd say the only way they'd have to go fast up front is to try to stretch them out. Stretch everybody out.
Because I don't think there's going to be a battle. In a small field like this, I do feel like if Magnitude gets out, holds his position, gets a half length to a length advantage, Bracket Buster would be fine sitting second, Strategic sitting third. Like, these other horses would be okay sitting just behind, not too far. But they are kind of naturally quick. Bracket Buster isn't a slow horse naturally. He doesn't want to be too far out of it. He gets out of the gate and he puts himself in it. And the same thing for McAfee. He's been a lot more forward with the blinkers on at these longer distances. He's been sitting pretty close. He's not like a speed demon, but the same thing for Strategic Focus. All of them could be close in a field of 5. You've got 4 of these horses who you feel like are either wanting to be on the lead or sitting just behind. And then Sovereignty all of a sudden now has this new tactical speed. So it does become a little tricky in a small field, because you just wonder, is Sovereignty going to just drop back a little bit and say, let them go at it? Or like you said, do they just feel like we're better than this group? We, in particular, aren't even going to really worry maybe about horses like Bracket Buster or McAfee. Maybe he just doesn't want to let Magnitude get too far away from him. Right?
That's what I would figure. That's
if
why
you're on Sovereignty.
Right. But if that's the case, then Magnitude's really in trouble, because
if he's close, putting the pressure on him.
Right. It's almost a no-win situation, the way Sovereignty runs.
You just single him in the pick 5?
Yeah, you have to.
And it comes down to how you're putting your pick 5 ticket together too, right? Because it's a field of 5. You don't want to double or triple up if you don't have to. But if you are chucking some of the other chalks earlier on in the sequence, and there's going to be a couple big ones. Maybe you don't use Torpedo Anna in that race, right? Maybe you go against Bookham Dano in one of those. Then all of a sudden you hit with one of your 8 or 10 to 1 shots that you like. I always have a ticket, Barry, where I'm like short with my top picks, and then one where I would go 1-4, 1-3-4 or something like that. Just if all my other horses, because a lot of it's about ticket structure. David hit a ticket last week, I think, at Saratoga, just like that, on a $4 ticket that paid $1,500, because he just went like single, 2 deep, single, 4 deep, and it was like 2x4, and it hit. Because sometimes, I know for me, the tickets that I hit, my winning percentage is way better on like $24 tickets than it is on $240 tickets. Just for me personally, because I know my opinion's better. For some people, it's not that way. But like for you and I almost want to throw up if I bet a ticket too big, because I already feel like I've lost. I'm like, I'm nervous. It's like, oh my God, 288. Or like once it gets up there and above, I'm like, this is too much for me. I could have bet 3 or 4 other things. I could have bet 5 different horses, 50 to win or 25 to win, like things like that.
Or multiple tickets.
Yeah.
That's what I do a lot of.
Me too.
But I do, there's a balance there, because sometimes I fall into it where I go too short.
Yeah.
And, I spend another, let's say $6 or $8 and I hit the whole thing easily. But it's just a fine-tuned balance. The more experience you have doing it, the better you get at it.
Barry, my friend, talk to us about the Notorious OTB. You guys not only cover the big days, but a lot of stuff during the week too. I saw you just had some stuff out for Wednesday, Saratoga. What's going on there this week?
We're doing Saratoga Saturday. So we're doing the big Saturday $100 budget.
Bankroll. Yep.
Bankroll pod, and we use the whole card, so it's not just going to be the stakes races. And I think there's some opportunities kind of earlier in this.
Yeah, I'm gonna play I think like an early pick 3 on the card, because I like a couple of the horses in some of the early races. Just to like a quick flash over there. Botas, the first time starter in race number 1, a little bit interesting to me. And the 5 Farrell, who ran first time out of the box and didn't have the smoothest of trips and kind of came out of it early on. Those are a couple horses that might be on my radar. The second race, this one's a long turf race. I think it's a good spot for buoys. The 4s,
yes.
A horse who's on my radar in this one. It just feels like a really nice spot for this horse in here. And then I'll even mention one more before we get out of here. In the third, the 3, who's actually going to take a good amount of money. This horse is showing some ability in the mornings. I really like the work that you could find on First TV. It was way back here in July, on July 21st, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was a month ago, and it was very good. So if there's some of these more recent ones pop up, I'm going to check out. But what's cool is when you look at the pedigree of this horse, Barry, which is so nice with the formulator, you see Guarana, who won 5 out of 6. Was a multiple grade
really
one winner.
Good horse, really
and
good.
Won her first 3, won at Saratoga. So she showed precocity. She showed the ability to sprint. She won over that track at Saratoga. You have Beatbox, who was a nice horse also, and was up in graded stakes races, won this Fairgrounds on the Turf graded stakes race a few years back. You have Magic Dance, who won the first 2 starts. So again, precocity, quickness, sprinting, and then Cornucopian for Baffert, who won that debut and was your Arkansas Derby favorite. We know this guy's got ability and precocity. So do not be shocked if the 3 horse comes out running with that family and the talented the talent that she showed in the mornings just a month ago. I'm going to use her. I thought the 6 was kind of interesting too for handle. Just tell Ann the Dam won the debut. So a little bonus coverage on top of the pick 5, maybe some fun horses to throw in some of your early exotics there. Barry, my friend, man, it's crazy. We only have after this 1 more Saratoga week. How about that, huh? It flies. Yeah. It flies. It really does each and every summer. So good luck all weekend long. Ask DRF AI if you need any help when you're playing the races. Saratoga, Del Mar, wherever you're playing this weekend. We wish you the best of luck. Head to drf.com for anything that you need.